Hey guys, hey, it's Anne-Marie with another anti-HR video. And in this video, we're going to talk about what to do when that performance review feels more like retaliation than an evaluation. So first, welcome to the Anti-HR channel where we talk about employee workplace rights and how to assert your workplace rights when you feel they are being violated. Now more than ever, it is critically important that you understand your workplace rights and you know how to assert them and that you assert them sooner rather than later, because as we know in the United States of America, they seem to be disappearing by the minute. Not just your workplace rights, but all your rights. So now's the time that if you think something isn't right at your job and you want to take the necessary steps to assert your rights up to and including cashing out through a separation with severance, now's the time to do it. Let's talk about what to do when that performance review feels more like retaliation than an evaluation. So we are 6 months into the year, and in some organizations, people, believe it or not, are getting evaluations right now. A lot of companies give their evaluations closer to the end of the year, but for some companies that have fiscal years that start in July, they do their evaluations, during June and even into July. So I wanted to talk about this now because it might be relevant to a lot of people. So what do you do when you're sitting in a performance review meeting and you're listening to the things that your manager is saying about your performance, and it sounds not at all related to the way that you are doing your job and not at all reflective of the work that you know you're doing, and it feels like it's coming out of left field and that they are saying things about you that you know are not true, and that they've written them in your review and you've never heard of some of the things that they're even bringing up before. And it feels like you're being punished rather than being given productive feedback. What do you do when your performance review feels like retaliation? Let's talk about it. First, let's talk about what retaliation in a performance review might look like. So this kind of feedback might come up after you have filed a complaint of discrimination at work, or right after you've returned from family medical leave, or after you've requested reasonable accommodations. You might also have this type of feedback on your review occur when you've spoken up at a meeting or asked a question that made your manager uncomfortable or made your manager look like they didn't know what they were doing. So one of those things happens, and now suddenly your stellar performance has now turned into something that is negative. Oftentimes, this may happen with very little warning, because let's face it, you don't know how people are going to react to some of these things. And so you may be completely blindsided when you get into your review and you think everything is fine. And then you find out that you're not doing a good job, even though, as far as you know, you have been doing a good job. But one of the things I just mentioned occurred before you got that review. Make sure that you watch out for these red flags. Vague or subjective feedback without any concrete examples. Being blamed for team issues and errors that are completely outside of your control. A sudden focus on minor mistakes and completely ignoring your wins throughout the year. Ratings that don't match feedback or actual results. These are not growth opportunities. These are just reasons to attack your performance and create a paper trail to discredit you and manage you out the door. So what do? Let's talk about that. First of all, don't react emotionally. Actually, really don't react at all. The best thing to do in a performance review meeting where you are blindsided with things that you know are not true, that feel retaliatory, is to do as little as possible. Do and say as little as possible. Listen to what is being said. Carefully write down what you're hearing as much as possible. Ask questions, but not in a combative manner. And then wait to react till after the meeting. Don't argue. Document everything that is said, but don't argue at that time. Save that for later. The next thing to do is gather your receipts. Y'all know what I'm going to say next. Get out your documentation journal. You can grab one on my website and start collecting your proof that what your manager is saying about you is false, and that will also help you prove that what you are experiencing is retaliation. Gather those receipts. You're going to use that journal to capture all the details. Who said what? what is true, what is not true, what you can prove to be true, what you can prove to be false. Write it all down, document it. Names, dates, especially anything that you can show that will refute what was said in the performance review meeting. So if you have proof of things that you accomplished, you have people who were in meetings where they can back up that what your manager is saying is not accurate, colleagues, other people in management, document all those things. Now, when you're ready to respond, you want to do so strategically, right? So you want to raise your concerns in a strategic manner. You want to raise your concerns in a reasoned manner, not in a combative manner, not in a defensive manner, but you must raise your concerns, and you want to do so verbally and in writing. I highly recommend in this particular situation that you lead with a written response. So before you have a verbal conversation, write a written response describing your concerns, describing what you heard in the meeting, and explaining why you do not believe that what you heard is accurate, and your concerns that it might be retaliatory and why it might be retaliatory. So what occurred, what preceded the retaliatory feedback in the meeting? You filed a complaint claiming discrimination. You just returned from family medical leave. You recently requested reasonable accommodations that you have a right to request under the Americans with Disabilities Act. These are things that you have to raise as a part of your written communication, asking questions about the feedback that you received. In your written response, you want to do the following things: acknowledge receipt of the review, provide facts that support your contributions, ask clarifying questions if the feedback you received was vague and lacked concrete examples, request a follow-up meeting to further clarify and further discuss your concerns. When you go into that meeting to have your discussion about your concerns, that's where you may want to raise the possibility that the feedback you received might be retaliatory and be in response to your raising a concern about discrimination, or coming back from family medical leave, or requesting reasonable accommodations, or one of those things. You want to raise that part verbally. Don't put it in writing right away. Do the other things first and then raise it verbally in the meeting and see what kind of reaction comes out of it. Now, the other thing I want to be very clear about is you want to raise these concerns with your manager, and you want to give them an opportunity to respond. If they get combative, if they engage in other further retaliation, like trying to put you on a PIP, you add that to your documentation, and then you want to go to HR and raise your concerns. Here's an example of what you might write in a communication to discuss the feedback you've received that you are concerned is retaliatory. Something really brief like, "Thank you for your feedback at the recent meeting that we had to discuss my performance. I have some questions about some of the issues that were raised relevant to my performance and deliverables," or you might say deliverables that you said that I did not provide. "I would very much appreciate the opportunity to discuss with you in person some of the clarifying questions that I have and some other concerns that I would like to bring to your attention as we bring this review to a close." That's it. When you get into the meeting is where you raise more concrete concerns. Quick tip: if you believe that the performance review situation is impacting your mental health, you might talk to your doctor or your therapist and have them help you put in a request for family medical leave. This will give you time to strategically figure out what you need to do next without the stress of having to go into the workplace day after day with this hanging over your head. It also gives you time to reach out to me, for example, do a discovery call, and let me work with you to help you come up with a strategy about how to deal with the retaliation in your work environment. If you believe that the feedback that you've received on a performance review is retaliation for you raising concerns about discrimination in your workplace, this may be the basis and grounds for you to request a negotiated separation with severance. So that is another thing that you might want to consider as you raise your concerns and take next steps. This is one of the reasons that I created the roadmap for understanding your workplace rights, which you can grab on my website. I really need you to understand your workplace rights so that you know whether something that happens in work is tied to something that your manager or your organization is allowed to do from a legal standpoint, or whether they're violating your workplace rights by doing it. And the only way you can know that is if you know what your workplace rights are. So in that roadmap, I lay out 10 key workplace rights that employees need to be aware of and give a summary and give information so that you can have a better understanding of it and know if someone has done something in your workplace that is violating one of those things. Remember, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. If you know that what you're being told in a performance review is not accurate, and you know that you recently raised concerns about your work environment, whether it's discrimination, or you asked for accommodations, or you requested family medical leave, your spidey senses are tingling, something is probably not right. If this sounds like something that's going on with you right now, please read my latest blog post on my website where I talk more detail about what to do when a performance review feels more like retaliation than an evaluation, and book a discovery call with me. My calendar is now back open. Book a discovery call with me and let's talk about your specific situation. 54321. Book a discovery call with me and let's talk about your specific situation and what you need to do to navigate or get yourself out of it. I hope that this video has been helpful. If it has been, please take a moment and hit the like button. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Like, if you're here and you're not a subscriber, what are you doing? Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, but please comment constructively. Don't forget that if you're a member of the AntiHR membership community, you have access to the AntiHR Documentation Journal and the roadmap to understand your workplace rights for free. It's a part of being a member. This is a community that I have created outside of YouTube because I want to have a place where I can talk more frankly about HR issues without being concerned about being censored or someone complaining because they don't like what I had to say, et cetera, et cetera. You know how things are nowadays. So I've created this community and I have put a lot of resources and information. There's even access to master course modules in the membership community. So there's a lot of information in there that you cannot access by just being a subscriber to my website. So if this is of interest to you, grab access at the link in the description of this video. It's only $12 a month to join as an annual member. So grab your access today and I'll see you inside of the community. As always, HR is not your enemy, but they're definitely not your friend. But I am. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.